Today is a very special anniversary for victims advocates in Illinois. 10 years ago, voters amended the state constitution, enshrining a new package of rights for victims and their families, known as Marsy's Law. Illinois Capitol Bureau Chief Max Cotton takes a look at the impact.
We have to make sure that every victim and survivor is heard, regardless of what he or she looks like, regardless of what language they speak, regardless of where they are from.
That's why Lake County State's Attorney Eric Reinhardt thinks Marsy's Law is so important. It sets a culture of making victims' rights a priority.
But as the rules came into place, the culture begins to evolve even more, right? As we train prosecutors and victim specialists over and over again on this.
What are those rules? Marsy's Law has 3 central tenets. 1, victims must be notified of their rights. 2, they have a right to make a statement in open court before a defendant is sentenced. 3, they have the right to be notified of public proceedings as well as updates on the defendant's status post-trial, such as when they're being released from jail.
Marsy's Law gave victims explicit legal standing to assert victims' rights, which is key to empowering them in a system where they otherwise have limited control.
Carrie Ward heads the Illinois Coalition Against Sexual Assault. She says survivors were always supposed to be part of the judicial system. However, Marsy's Law brought their rights to the forefront and fundamentally changed how they navigate the system.
And this is an impact that will last much longer than the 10 years that we celebrate today. We are thankful for Marsy's Law here in Illinois. We're thankful for the positive impact it has on the lives of survivors.
In Springfield, Max Cotton, WGEM News.